You know your job, the one you took just for now, and suddenly it's been 2 years. You're not sleeping, and anytime your manager name pops up on your phone, you get that heavy pain in your chest. The one you keep telling your friends and family that you're going to quit, but you conveniently never find the time to do so. Welcome to The Devil Wears Prada. A cinematic fever dream about a job that pretends to be glamorous while absolutely destroying all sense of any self-worth. And we can all relate because that job doesn't have to be in fashion. It could be retail, food service, data entry, the medical field. It doesn't matter. We've all been Andy Sachs in our own movies at some point. Overworked, underpaid, overwhelmed, and sleep deprived at our wits' end. Speaking of sleep deprived, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. One of the things that we all lack due to our day-to-day hustle and bustle lives, sleep. Who gets 8 hours of sleep on a regular basis at this point in life? It's not as common as it used to be. And you know the thing that's very irritating is when you go to sleep early and you wake up tired. And it's like, why is this happening? Was it in vain? Should I have just stayed up and scrolled on my phone? Should I have clicked on that blush bunny video that I received in my notifications earlier today? The answer is always yes for that, just to let you know. I'm joking, it's not. Your sleep is more important. Now, luckily for us, I have a solution. Today's sponsor is Manta Sleep. It is an adjustable mask. This is the silk mask. It's easy and gentle on my skin, which is needed because I have sensitive skin. This has improved my sleep quality a great deal, especially during the day when I choose to take a nap that I have to plan out. Like, okay, if I get into bed at this time, that means I can be asleep by this time. That means I can wake up when my alarm goes off at this time. And it's just like, girl, you should not have to plan a nap. But sleep procrastination is a thing. I just made that term up, but y'all know what I'm talking about. This mask has cut the 35-minute planning of laying in the bed down to like minutes. This has just been a great help for me to have this. If you guys are looking for improvement in your sleep quality, please check out the link below. If you use code BlushBunny, you'll get 10% off, and they have a variety of masks for you to choose from. So whichever ones meet your needs, trust me, it's worth it. And now back to our program. So let's set the scene. Suddenly I See plays in the background. We open to a montage of women getting ready for work. Hair is done while still laying in bed. Eyebrows are sculpted. Tiny little thongs are strategically chosen for optimal aesthetic because God forbid your panty line disturbs your outfit. These are not your average 9-to-5ers. These women aren't just getting dressed. They're suiting up for the world of perception. They represent the perfect woman that would walk into the halls of Runway, the high fashion magazine loosely inspired by Vogue, and currently presided over by a dragon in stilettos, Miranda Priestly. Meanwhile, we cut to Andy Sachs, sweet, sleepy-eyed, big hair, granny pantied Andy, who dresses like a middle school guidance counselor and thinks a blue sweater is just a blue sweater. She represents the everyday person, aka you, me, and everyone else who's ever taken a job just because it paid the bills. She's smart, overqualified, underdressed, and has no idea what she's walking into. We know this not only because of how she's dressed, but because the first question she asked is, "Who's Miranda?" Now, to play devil's advocate, no pun intended, jobs that pay the bills don't get researched. You apply and apply and apply until someone finally responds and you're like, oh wait, what company is this? Yeah, you said I applied back in April, it's now October. So let me see. So I get it. I'm on Andy's side. Who is Miranda? Of course, we don't find out yet because this is the question she poses to Miranda's shadow, Emily. Emily is that one coworker who thinks just because she's been working there longer than you, that somehow means she's better than you and you should grovel at her feet. She thinks it's laughable that Andy even walked through the doors of Runway, let alone applied. Emily's not just being mean, she's playing gatekeeper for a company that thrives on intimidation. But this moment of sheer amusement is cut short because she's on her way. Even before Miranda Priestly makes her grand entrance, her influence is everywhere. Desks are immaculate, clothing racks gliding by like parade floats, and every single person seems to know that they're operating under a constant state of Miranda readiness. It's pretty intense. And then, without a single shot of her face, the legend of Miranda begins. Phones ring, makeup is touched up, jackets fly onto hangers. It's a mass migration from casual to combat ready. In less than 60 seconds, we know this woman has the power to make an entire office recalibrate like a malfunctioning robot. This right here is our first taste of Runway's real culture. A place where fear and respect are two sides of the same coin. It's not enough to do your job well. You have to predict the next demand before it materializes, and if you fail, there are a dozen of hungry replacements waiting in the wings. This is a system that rewards perfection and punishes humanity. The genius of this introduction is that it doesn't need to tell us Miranda is important. It makes us feel it. By the time she steps out of the elevator, the audience already knows the unspoken rule of Runway. You are either essential or you are invisible, and both statuses can change in an instant. That's the world Andy Sachs is about to walk into. A place where she's not just unprepared, she's practically a different species. And that's exactly why her arrival is going to be so disruptive, both for her and for everyone around her. Now let's talk a little bit more about Andy. Andrea, or Andy to her friends, but to the world she's about to walk into, she might as well be labeled Exhibit A, not from here. When we first meet Andy, she's an eager, freshly graduated journalist, and the kind of writing portfolio that should matter in the real world. Except the Runway office isn't really a part of the real world. Her plan is simple, at least in her mind. She'll take the assistant job at Runway for a year, get the name on her resume, and then leapfrog into the world of serious journalism. To her, Runway is a temporary pit stop. From the moment Andy steps into the Runway lobby, the audience gets a perfect culture clash. Assistants in sky-high heels skim past her without breaking stride. Their hair glossy, their outfits sharp. She, on the other hand, looks like she pulled an all-nighter editing an article. Or maybe staying up watching reruns. When Andy finally meets Miranda, it's an encounter that plays out like a fencing match where one participant doesn't know they're holding a sword. Miranda doesn't speak loudly. She doesn't shout. She gives direction with a cursive monotone, making you hang on to her every word. And you better pay attention because she would not repeat herself. It's slight verbal communication mixed with a lot of telepathy. And most of us watching were thinking, okay, she's powerful, right? She's the boss. Yes, absolutely. But it is made clear that this is not motivational speaker power. This is the kind of power your district manager had when they just dropped in unannounced and asked why the promotional signage wasn't updated. It's the kind of fear that's baked into capitalism. The kind that makes you question if you're standing in one spot too long because you're not moving around conversing with customers that don't want your help anyway. That is the kind of power we're talking about. And here's the first sign of Miranda's complexity. She hires Andy not because she sees untapped potential. Well, not exactly. More likely because in that moment she needs a body in the chair. And perhaps buried deep under those layers of ice, she respects the faint glimmer of defiance Andy shows by not crumbling in the interview. This decision lands like a plot twist for Andy. She walks out of Runway with a job title that carries social weight in New York. Assistant to Miranda Priestly. But she doesn't yet understand the double edge of that sword. Outside the office, friends will either be impressed or horrified. Inside, she's now at the very bottom of a food chain that eats its young. This is the first step into Andy's transformation arc, stepping into a world that does not care about her dreams, her ideals. Here, the job isn't to prove she can write. The job is to survive Miranda Priestly. And survival, as she's about to find out, is a full-time performance. So, Andy gets the job. Congratulations. Welcome to Runway. This is the part of the movie where Andy goes from hopeful recent grad to executive assistant in freefall. And if you've ever worked in a job that slowly chipped away at your sense of self until you started asking questions like, okay, do I really need healthcare, or could I just freelance? Then this part is going to hit home. Let's set the scene. It's day one. Andy steps into her new role, and by steps in, I mean she's thrown into the deep end with cement shoes on. No training, no orientation, no here's the coffee machine, here's how we dial out. Just immediate immersion into Miranda's vortex. Suddenly, Andy's responsible for answering phones, managing the emails, and what is Emily's helpful advice? Man the desk. Okay. Andy's now expected to juggle a million things without dropping a single one. She's given no space to fail, no understanding from anyone, and zero emotional support. There's no how are you adjusting or do you need help? Just disapproval if she messes up and silence if she doesn't. Classic toxic job behavior. But up until now, Andy has managed somehow to keep her distance, at least mentally. Sure, she's running impossible errands, making coffee runs, and decoding Miranda's directives, but she still clings to the belief that she's not one of them. She's here for the resume, not the lifestyle. And then comes that scene, the one that turns into the film's thesis statement, a viral clip decades later, and arguably the first real crack in Andy's self-confidence. It starts casually enough. The team is pulling looks for a shoot, fabrics, accessories, racks of impossibly beautiful clothes. Andy is there to take notes, and she lets slip a little smirk. A small, very clear sign of her detachment. In her mind, the discussion about belts feels trivial. She doesn't get why everyone is sweating the difference between two nearly identical accessories. Miranda notices. Of course she does. And instead of snapping or shaming Andy outright, she opts for something far more devastating: education as annihilation. In perfect measured tones. And this is why I don't know if anyone else outside of Meryl Streep could have delivered this performance. Miranda dismantles Andy's assumption that fashion is frivolous. She explains the culture and economic machine behind the very sweater Andy is wearing, the lumpy blue one she picked out without thought. In doing so, Miranda traces its lineage back to the designer collections, the industry decisions, the color trends that eventually filtered down into the mass market bin where Andy bought it. It's not just about cerulean blue, it's about power, the invisible kind. Miranda is telling Andy, and by extension us, that what seems superficial is actually a global system of influence, that every choice we make as consumers has been shaped years in advance by people like her. The beauty of the scene is that it's not loud. Miranda doesn't have to win the argument. She is the argument. She's the answer. The monologue is part history lesson, part verbal slap, part subtle invitation. If you're going to be here, you better respect the game. And here's where the thematic commentary comes in. This is Andy's first taste of being made small in a way that's also intellectually undeniable. It's one thing to feel dismissed. It's another to be dismantled so thoroughly that you can't help but to respect the person doing it, and in turn wanting to impress them. From a character perspective, this is a pivot. Andy will start to dress differently, move differently, take the work more seriously. Not because she suddenly cares about the belts or shoes, but because she's starting to understand that survival here means fluency in Miranda's language. In the larger arc, this moment foreshadows the price of transformation. Once you start to adapt, the old you, the version that smirks at belt choices, doesn't just fade quietly. It fights to come back, and it will demand to know what you've lost in the process. If the cerulean monologue was Miranda's intellectual knockout, then the transformation montage is Andy's silent response. It's her "fine, I'll play" moment. Up until now, Andy's been dressing like, well, someone who doesn't care about fashion. Oversized sweaters, clunky shoes, wild hair, just the epitome of not that girl. She's been operating under the belief that competence should speak for itself, that the quality of her work will outweigh the superficial. Nigel, of course, knows better. In one of the film's quiet turning points, he offers Andy a lifeline, a walk through the runway fashion closet. In this world, appearance isn't decoration, it is necessity. The montage that follows is both exhilarating and a little bit dangerous. We see Andy in Chanel boots and Valentino and perfectly tailored skirts, even though she's a 6. Which I always thought it was funny that 6 was considered to be big. Because, what? Each outfit more sharper, bolder, more runway. Hair smooth, makeup on point. The editors notice, the other assistants notice, and most importantly, Miranda notices. Not with a compliment, she's not that kind of boss, but with a glance of approval. This is the film's visual shorthand for assimilation. We watch Andy shedding the signifiers of her old life, piece by piece, replacing them with the trappings of a world she once dismissed. It's empowering, she's finally being taken seriously, but it's also a warning. In spaces like this, transformation can quickly become erasure. The brilliance of the montage is that it doesn't show Andy changing her work ethic, her values, or her ambition, because those things were already there. It shows her learning the language of the culture she's in. And in doing so, she's proving something Miranda already knows. Adaptation is survival. By the end of the sequence, Andy doesn't just look like she belongs, she moves like she belongs. And that's exactly when the stakes will start to rise. Because the deeper you're pulled into Miranda's orbit, the harder it becomes to imagine life outside of it. Every great workplace drama has that moment when the honeymoon period ends, when the glow of new success starts to dim under the weight of what's actually required to keep it. For Andy, this is where runway stops being a thrilling challenge and starts becoming an endurance test. The tasks are absurd. Not just hard, absurd. Tracking down an unpublished Harry Potter manuscript from Miranda's twin daughters and doing it by yesterday. Coordinating flights across time zones while riding in a cab, picking up coffee so hot it could be classified as a weapon, only to watch Miranda abandon it on her desk. These aren't assignments, they're gauntlets, each one designed to test speed, resourcefulness, and the ability to perform miracles without complaint. Very much Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire coded. Now, from a plot perspective, these moments are pure comedy gold. We get fast cuts of Andy running through the city in designer heels, dodging traffic, balancing garment bags and phone calls. But under the humor, there's something more insidious at work. Each impossible task subtly enforces the idea that Miranda's approval is worth any sacrifice. And that's the hook, because here's the thing. The more impossible the ask, the more intoxicating it feels to pull it off. When Andy manages to deliver the manuscript, she doesn't just feel relief. She feels powerful. She's proven she can navigate an impossible world and win, even if the victory is invisible to anyone outside of Runway. This is where we start to see the core paradox of toxic high-performance cultures. The abuse becomes addictive. Each time Andy meets the impossible, the bar is raised. Each time she delivers, Miranda expects more. There's no finish line. It's just an ever-moving goalpost. And because the work is tied to identity now, because looking capable in front of Miranda has become its own form of validation, Andy pushes herself harder, even as her personal life starts to fray. From a thematic lens, these scenes are a warning about the danger of conflating survival with worth. Andy is starting to mistake exhaustion for achievement. She's normalizing the idea that her time, health, and relationships are all acceptable collateral damage if it means she can keep saying yes to the impossible. In Miranda, she just keeps handing Andy the next impossible thing, knowing that by now Andy will chase the win without needing to be asked twice. The cost of this escalation starts to bleed into Andy's personal life, and the first real fractures in her old identity will show. Success has a way of sneaking up on you, and so does the wreckage it leaves behind. By now, Andy is operating at full runway velocity. She is one of the clackers. Clack, 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 clack. That is the sound of her stilettos on the marble floor. Phone glued to her ear, mental to-do list running in the triple digits. She's winning Miranda's favor, or at least avoiding her wrath. And from the outside, it looks like she's made it. But the camera quietly shifts focus to what's happening off the clock. Or rather, to the fact that there is no off the clock anymore. Her boyfriend, Nate, is starting to notice. Her friends are starting to notice. Andy's always late. Always canceling, always promising to make it up to them. Her world outside of the office is becoming a series of apologies. The real turning point in this time of the film isn't a big blowout. It's a birthday. Nate's birthday, to be exact. Andy misses the dinner or the party because Miranda needs her. And even though Andy shows up later with the cupcake, the damage is already done. It's the first clear visual of what's at stake. No matter how much she wins at work, she's losing the plot at home. Again, from a thematic perspective, this is where Devil Wears Prada stops being just a workplace satire. It starts becoming a cautionary tale to the audience about the invisible cost of ambition. It's not just about having no time. It's about the creeping realization that you're not showing up for the people you love in the same way you used to. And maybe they're starting to realize they can't count on you. Andy's still in denial at this point. She frames these sacrifices as temporary, even noble. I'm just paying my dues. It's a familiar lie in toxic work cultures. The idea that once you've proven yourself, the demands will ease up and balance will return. But Runway doesn't work that way. The more you prove you can give, the more it will take, not giving back. And here's the kicker. Miranda doesn't have to drive this wedge intentionally. She just needs Andy to keep prioritizing the job. The rest takes care of itself. Friends will drift off, relationships will strain, and slowly, without realizing it, Andy will start to see her personal life not as a refuge from work, but as an interruption to it. That shift, when home becomes the inconvenience and work becomes the constant, is where the real transformation happens. Not in the clothes, not in the skills, but in the rewiring of her identity. By the time the gala rolls around, Andy is no longer just the wide-eyed outsider. She's a fully initiated player in Miranda's world. Gala night isn't just about fashion. It's a test of judgment, discretion, and the ability to anticipate every need before it's voiced. The event begins like any spectacle. Glittering gowns, flashing cameras, and then it happens. A crisis that could unravel the evening, at least in Miranda's world. Not knowing the name of one of your colleagues. Andy swoops in and delivers. Andy realizes she's not just surviving Miranda's world. She's beginning to thrive in it. This leads her to Paris. For Andy, this trip represents more than just another assignment. This is where her professional ambition and her personal boundaries collide. Emily, whose entire identity revolves around proximity to Miranda, is exiled, for lack of better terms. And the thing is, the climax of Andy's Paris arc is a moral and emotional trial. Does she prioritize ambition and Miranda's trust, or does she attempt to protect Emily and preserve her own sense of integrity? The film positions the audience to feel the weight of this choice because we've watched her evolve from naive outsider to indispensable right hand. And yet, the evolution comes with unavoidable collateral damage. From a thematic perspective, Paris crystallizes one of the film's central ideas. In jobs that pay the bills, or any high-stakes career, success is rarely free from compromise. Loyalty, ambition, personal ethics, all must be balanced, often imperfectly. Andy's choices here are as much a test of character as they are a showcase of competence. By the end of her Paris arc, the tension between professional triumph and personal cost hits its peak. Now it's not just about what Andy has done, but about who she's become and how every major player in her orbit, Miranda, Emily, Nigel, Nate, reflect a different side of ambition, loyalty, and survival. So I want to touch on them for just a second before I finish this out. Let's start with Miranda. The film doesn't spoon feed us her backstory, but the breadcrumbs are there. The hints of failed marriages, the absence of a warm support network, the way her daughters are tucked away behind nannies. Power didn't come free. Her emotional life, whatever it started as, was traded piece by piece to build and maintain her empire. Miranda's ice isn't just aimed outward, it's a form of self-control. It's how she keeps herself from breaking under pressure. The price of power for her is isolation. And while she wears it well, it's still a cost. For nearly 2 hours, we see Miranda as this untouchable figure gliding through rooms like she owns the oxygen in them. And then, Paris. Andy walks into that hotel room expecting the same formidable boss, but instead finds a woman with no makeup, hair slightly undone, and a voice that almost, not quite, cracks. When Miranda tells Andy about her impending divorce, she's not asking for sympathy. She's stating a fact. But it's the way she says it. It's the fleeting eye contact, the sigh. Those are cracks in the ice. And they matter because we're seeing that for Miranda, vulnerability is a luxury she can't afford in public. The don't let them see you weak principle. This moment is about compartmentalization. She lets Andy see a glimpse of her pain, but then snap, she's back to business. It's not that she doesn't feel deeply, it's that she's conditioned to never show weakness in an industry that preys on it. For men in power, a messy divorce is gossip, maybe a scandal, but for a woman like Miranda, it's ammunition for her rivals. Here's the paradox. If Miranda were warmer, more relatable, she wouldn't have gotten to the top. But because she is cold, she's seen as a monster in some ways. Society wants women leaders to be nurturing and approachable, but still perform at the same ruthless level as men. And Miranda navigates it by leaning entirely into the side that ensures she keeps her throne, even if it means sacrificing personal closeness. But what was her most villainous act? The betrayal of Nigel. Nigel's big break, the chance to finally move from the sidelines to the spotlight, and it gets yanked from him. On the surface, it's a classic villain move, steal from the loyal friends to save herself. But if we pause the judgment for a second, was it really betrayal, or was it an unavoidable sacrifice? Miranda knows Jacqueline is gunning for her position. She also knows that a divorce scandal is about to make her look weak to the board. The only way to secure her position is to promise her enemy the thing she values most, her loyalty. that loyalty just happens to come at Nigel's expense. It's easy to see this moment as Miranda revealing her true heartless self, but it's also the clearest example of how she plays chess while everyone else plays checkers. She doesn't make moves based on fairness, she makes moves based on what she needs. In her mind, Nigel's disappointment is collateral damage in a war he doesn't fully see. And here's how it relates back to Andy. Andy spends the movie wrestling with the ethical compromises she's making to succeed. By the end, she realizes she's becoming Miranda. Miranda doesn't apologize for her compromises because that's who she is. For Andy, the Nigel situation is a preview of the life she'd have to lead if she stayed in Miranda's world, always choosing power over people, always justifying the trade. Which brings us to Emily, the human embodiment of, if you're not suffering, you're not trying hard enough. Emily lives, breathes, and practically bleeds fashion, not just because she likes pretty clothes. No. For her, again, fashion is life. Every handbag, every perfectly curated outfit, every name drop of a Parisian designer is an investment into her status. In Emily's mind, proximity to Miranda isn't just a job, it's the ultimate status of worthiness. This is why she doesn't take Andy's arrival personally. Andy is just a new girl, but that changes once Andy adapts. In Emily's world, this can lead to losing a paycheck. Rising to the occasion is not a good thing. This is about losing her identity, because without the position of Miranda's first assistant, who would Emily be? There's a desperation there. We laugh at her one-liners and her dry delivery, but beneath it is someone who's holding on to this world. She's running herself ragged not only because Miranda demands it, but again, this environment validates her existence. And yes, it is devotion, but it's also fear. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of losing access to the exclusive inner circle that she clawed her way into. So when Andy starts getting Miranda's approval, it's like watching someone else slowly move into your house and start rearranging your furniture. It's like, what are you doing? No. From Emily's perspective, the Paris betrayal isn't just a professional loss. It's a personal humiliation. She sacrificed her sanity and her immune system, if we're keeping it real, all to go to Paris. And in one crushing moment, Andy takes that away from her. We, as the audience, understands that Miranda made the call, but for Emily, it's Andy that did this. Andy's the one who's wearing the dresses that Emily dreamed of, walking in the city that Emily has starved herself for weeks to prepare for. A part of the heartbreak is that Emily's loyalty was never reciprocated by Miranda in the way that she imagined. Emily thought devotion or knowledge equaled protection, but Miranda's world doesn't work like that. Loyalty is expected, not rewarded, and not necessarily reciprocated. But for Emily, she doesn't stay bitter forever. After the return from Paris, Andy calls her up, and Emily is still snarky, but she lets Andy in a little bit. There's a sliver of sisterhood there, because deep down, they've both been through the same storm. Different boats, same hurricane. Now let's get into Nigel, the man who got the job that a million girls would die for. From the moment we meet him, we know that fashion isn't shallow. This isn't just a job, it is art. But more importantly, Nigel isn't just a genius with fabrics. He's a translator between worlds. To Miranda, he's a trusted sidekick, someone who understands her impossible standards without needing them explained. To Andy, he's the interpreter who turns Miranda's cryptic messages into layman's terms. Nigel is the person who can simultaneously save your career and shame you into wearing better shoes. Now, that relationship with Miranda is layered. On the surface, it's mutual respect. She trusts his eye, his ability to execute, but there's also an unspoken hierarchy that's impossible to ignore. Miranda is still the one in charge, and Nigel, despite being the creative powerhouse, is still a subject in her kingdom. And here's where it's interesting to me, because Nigel loves the dream and the dream maker. He's not delusional. He knows Miranda can be brutal, but he's also aware that her brutality has kept Runway on top, which means his work gets the platform it deserves. So the question becomes, is he complicit in the system, or is he a victim of it? The truth is, he's both. In Nigel's mind, as long as the work is great, the compromises are worth it. But that belief is about to be tested in the cruelest way possible: Paris. The city where Nigel is finally going to get his shot. At least that's what he thinks. Years of devotion, thousands of late nights, and more than a few compromises have led to this moment. There's a new opportunity for him on the horizon, a chance to step into the spotlight he's earned 10 times over. But then, Miranda, in the most Miranda Priestly way, pulls the rug from under him. His promotion is gone, handed to someone else as a part of Miranda's last-minute political maneuvering to save her own position. The devastation in Nigel's face during the reveal of this is one of the quiet, heartbreaking moments of the film. He doesn't get mad and storm out. He doesn't even tell Miranda off. He just takes it, because deep down, he's been in this world long enough to know that the dream comes with fine print. And the fine print says, in the game of chess, you must always protect your queen. But the thing about this almost dream is that it's worse than outright failure, you know? Failure you can bounce back from. Almost means you tasted the victory, you felt it in your hands, and then it was taken away. And yet Nigel doesn't blame Miranda, because Nigel understands the game. He knows Miranda did what she had to do to survive, and in a way he respects it. He says that she will pay him back. Though he doesn't know that for sure, he is hopeful, because that's all he has: hope. That's what makes Nigel such a bittersweet character. He's the guy who deserves the win but never gets it, because the system he loves is also the system that will never let him truly rise. And yet tomorrow, he'll still show up, still create, still serve the dream, because this is the job that a million girls would die for. So on to the last character I want to focus on. A character who on paper is supposed to be supportive, but in execution, let's just say the internet has thoughts. We're talking about Nate. Now, I personally didn't have a problem with Nate, but I do think he could have expressed himself a little differently, came at her with a softer approach, but that's just me. I do, however, understand the viewpoint of the general audience, so I'll explain it from their perspective. When The Devil Wears Prada first came out, Nate was positioned as Andy's anchor, the reminder of her real life, outside of the chaos of Runway. But over time, fans started watching with fresh eyes and going, wait a minute, was Nate low-key like sabotaging her? See, Nate doesn't challenge Andy in a way that makes her grow. He challenges her in a way that makes her shrink. He frames his concern not as, hey, I'm worried about your work-life balance, but more like, you're becoming a person I don't like, and therefore you must be wrong. He weaponizes guilt, using their shared history as leverage. You've changed, and I miss the old you. Translation: I miss the version of you that was less ambitious, less glamorous, less threatening to my own comfort zone. And here's where the nice guy facade cracks, because his disappointment isn't really about Andy losing herself. It's about Andy gaining access to a world where Nate doesn't belong. He doesn't match. In their own dynamic, Nate was the stable one, the one Andy came home to after work. Now she's the one with expensive clothes, the Paris trips, and the boss who could crush cities with a glance. That shift makes him insecure. This is the part where people mistake male fragility for concern. He's just worried about her. No, genuine support means letting someone grow even when it scares you, even when it changes the balance of your relationship. Nate wasn't ready to do that, and that's why his nice guy image doesn't hold up. under scrutiny. When he says you've changed, it's meant as an accusation, but isn't that the point of growth? She's learning, adapting, pushing herself in ways she never would have if she stayed exactly as she was when they met. But instead of seeing that as evolution, Nate sees it as betrayal. Men are allowed to grow, to pursue ambition, to temporarily neglect relationships for career milestones, and it's often framed as admirable. But when women do it, suddenly it's selfish, cold, and selling out. Nate's anger here isn't just personal, it's societal. He's channeling that deep-rooted expectation that women should keep themselves small so that the men in their lives don't feel overshadowed. So, was Andy wrong? That depends on whether you believe personal transformation is a crime. From most people's standpoint, the only thing she's guilty of is refusing to apologize for wanting more. But of course, wanting more brings us to a head. After Paris, the dust settles. And for Andy, the fallout is both professional and deeply personal. She has reached the pinnacle of runway competence. She's navigated impossible tasks, earned Miranda's trust, and proven herself in a world that once didn't even matter to her. Yet the victory is bittersweet. Back in New York, the consequences of her transformation become impossible to ignore. Relationships with Nate and her friends have shifted. Her boyfriend's criticism during the fight that they had once was something she brushed off, but now it resonates as a reflection of her new priorities. She's grown, yes, but in ways that have left her disconnected from the life she once had. In pursuing professional excellence, she has paid a personal price. The lessons are clear. Andy has learned how power operates in high-stakes environments. She has also learned a subtle truth that some leaders, like Miranda, are not villains in the traditional sense. They are products of a system that demands perfection and wields influence. Andy's exit from Runway is both literal and symbolic. She walks away from the career that has consumed her identity, leaving Miranda to continue running the empire she's perfected. Dropping the phone in the fountain, the acknowledgement that some things are worth doing but not necessarily living for. It's Andy's way of reclaiming agency. Ultimately, the aftermath is not about revenge or defiance. It's about reflection. Andy has been tested, shaped, and educated, and she emerges with a clearer understanding of ambition and self-worth. The experiences in Runway leave her with lessons that extend far beyond fashion. The balance between career and personal life, the price of excellence, and most importantly, the courage to define success on one's own terms. So as the film ends, the story's questions linger. How much of ourselves are we willing to invest in a career? When does ambition begin to cost more than it's worth? How far are we willing to go for jobs that pay the bills? The Devil Wears Prada doesn't answer these definitively. Instead, it invites reflection, leaving viewers to decide where Andy's lessons intersect with our own lives. So I've been wanting to talk about this movie for a while. Was not sure what angle I would take, but just with where I am in life right now, I decided to focus on the culture of jobs and careers. Maybe later I'll do like a fun, blow by blow of the iconic scenes and things, my little synopsis, how I like to do them. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. A couple things I want to know from you. One, which character did you relate to most? And do you believe that Miranda was a villain? Was she truly the devil wearing Prada? And what about the film resonates with you the most? Oh, and I went ahead and did this video because I'm like, every time I go on Twitter, someone is posting a still shot or a video of The Devil Wears Prada 2. And I'm like, why are we getting this footage? Like, I think closed sets should be implemented in a time where people are taking their phones out every 5 seconds, recording everything, you know, just spoiling it for everybody. Like, I should not know what Miranda is wearing walking down the street. Like, this all should be under wraps. What is happening right now? That really was just, it's a bummer to go online and see like spoilers, if that's what we want to call them. We already know the plot. You know, Miranda is having to get used to and adapt to the times. We're moving from printed work to online. So, you know, I think the premise for it is good, and I think it's relatable for the time that we're in, but I really wish that they were not posting it online every 5 seconds, because absolutely not. Anyways, it's late. So if you've been here for a while, if you've watched any of my other videos, then you know how it is, how I get when it's late. And I pray that this video comes out good, because I am sleepy. All right. Oh, before I go, I want to say thank you to our executive producers over on Patreon for contributing to this video. As you guys know, or maybe not, I started a Patreon not too long ago, and these lovely people have been so gracious to help me out in a time of need because, you know, the whole job thing, we're not gonna get into it. Also, patrons, you guys have not voted on the poll. I left the poll up for us to talk about, like, for you guys to vote on what videos you wanted, and I had like 2 votes out of 14 people. Please make sure you vote on the polls. I think I'm just gonna keep going with the Once Upon a Time videos, and then as time goes on, I'll just introduce more videos. Also, I've lowered the prices because just with looking for a job, I'm like, these jobs do not pay, and I need to lower these prices on my Patreon, because I can't, even though I wasn't charging much, I just needed to lower it for my own sanity and my own peace of mind. Also, guys, make sure you do visit Manta Sleep. This sponsorship came out of nowhere. I hadn't been getting any sponsorships, and of course they pay us to, you know, advertise or whatever, but it really has been a help to me. So if you have issues sleeping, it's a good investment. They didn't ask me to, you know, close out to say it again or anything. I just wanted you guys to know that. All right. With all of that being said, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to click like and hop on over to that subscribe button and hit the bell. Otherwise, YouTube will never show you my videos. As always, I'm all ears. Until next time. Bye.